Have you ever felt strange when the doorbell rings? Someone wants to come in, sit down, chat for a while. But inside, instead of excitement, you feel a wave of discomfort. A quiet resistance rises, almost like a voice saying, "I wish I could just say no." This doesn't mean you hate people, and it's not about being angry with the world. You might even enjoy friendships, conversations, and social connections in the right setting. But when it comes to visitors stepping into your personal space, something feels heavy, almost draining. You would rather keep your home quiet, your routine undisturbed, your energy preserved. If this sounds familiar, you are not alone, and you are not strange. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, believed that such feelings reveal something much deeper about the soul. They are not signs of rudeness or coldness. Instead, they are connected to how your energy works, how your psyche protects itself, and how your inner life unfolds. Let's explore what Jung's psychology can teach us about why some people dislike having visitors and why this feeling might actually be a sign of inner strength and self-awareness rather than weakness. Jung was one of the first psychologists to use the terms introvert and extrovert, but his meaning was far richer than today's casual use. For Jung, it wasn't simply about shyness or friendliness, it was about how your psychic energy flows. An extrovert directs energy outward, the outside world, the conversations, the noise, the stimulation fuels them. They feel recharged when surrounded by others. The introvert works in the opposite way. Their energy flows inward. Silence, solitude, and self-reflection give them strength. When they are exposed to too much external stimulation, long talks, unplanned visits, crowded spaces, their energy drains quickly. Not because they dislike people, but because their very soul needs rest and recovery in quiet. That's why for introverts, the home is not just a physical space. It is a sanctuary. It's the place where their mind and body reorganize, where they can put down the social mask and simply be themselves. When a visitor steps into that space, even with kindness and good intentions, it disrupts the balance. It forces the introvert to put on the persona, the social face Jung described, and that is deeply exhausting. So not liking visitors doesn't mean you are antisocial. It means your energy is structured differently. It is a psychological necessity, not a character flaw. Jung also spoke about the shadow, the hidden part of the personality that contains everything we suppress, hide, or avoid. When someone enters your home, it's not just a physical visit. On an unconscious level, their presence stirs your inner world. Sometimes, without knowing why, you may feel uneasy around certain visitors. Their energy, their way of speaking, or simply their presence might touch something hidden in your shadow, old fears, unprocessed emotions, forgotten wounds. That's why Jung warned, what you do not bring into consciousness will appear in your life as fate. A casual visit can suddenly feel like an invasion, not because of the person themselves, but because your unconscious is reacting. The shadow isn't only about darkness, though. It also contains your hidden strengths, talents, insights, and parts of yourself waiting to be discovered. So when you feel that strong urge to withdraw, it may actually be your psyche telling you, pay attention, you need space to process something important. Jung believed that the house is one of the most powerful symbols of the psyche. Each part of the house reflects a part of your inner world. The bedroom symbolizes intimacy and rest. The living room reflects your social mask and how you present yourself. The kitchen is emotional nourishment, the place where energy is renewed. The basement represents the unconscious, the hidden depths. The attic mirrors higher thoughts and spiritual ideas, and the front door. This is the boundary between yourself and the outside world. When someone crosses that door, They don't just step into your living room. Symbolically, they step into your soul. If your psyche is not ready, if you are in a phase of self-protection, reflection, or healing, this intrusion, no matter how friendly, can feel like an invasion. That's why sensitive and introverted people often feel so drained after visits. Their unconscious recognizes the symbolic importance of that threshold. The house is not only walls and furniture, it is the mirror of your inner life. Have you ever smiled politely while serving coffee to a visitor, chatting about small things, while deep down wishing you could be alone? Maybe you've acted friendly but secretly thought, when will this visit end? It sounds harsh, but it's actually a form of self-protection. Jung believed that respecting your boundaries is not selfishness. It is a necessary step in psychological growth and individuation, the process of becoming your true self. When you say no to unnecessary visits, when you choose solitude over forced socializing, you are not shutting people out. You are honoring the temple of your soul. You are giving yourself the silence and space you need to breathe, to heal, to grow. Society often praises extroversion, being social, outgoing, always available. Introverts can feel guilty for wanting to be alone, as if solitude is a flaw. But Jung turned this idea upside down. He saw solitude as a path to inner strength, to be alone with yourself, to protect your energy, to say no when needed. That is not weakness, that is courage, because in solitude you meet your true self, you face your shadow, you recharge your energy, and only then can you show up in the world authentically, without resentment or exhaustion. So, if you don't like having visitors, remember this. It doesn't make you unfriendly, rude, or broken. It makes you human, and perhaps more self-aware than most. Your discomfort is not a defect. It is a message from your psyche telling you to respect your boundaries and honor your inner space. Your home, in Jung's view, is not just where you live. It is a symbol of your soul. Protecting it means protecting yourself. And by doing so, you create room for true growth, authentic relationships, and genuine peace. So next time the doorbell rings and you feel that deep resistance, don't judge yourself. Listen, because sometimes your soul is simply saying, "Not now, I need silence." There are times when you feel guilty for not wanting visitors. You might even call yourself ungrateful or heartless. But Carl Jung helps us understand what's really happening within us. He called it the persona, the mask we wear to present ourselves to the world. The persona is the social role we adapt to work, to family, to relationships, and yes, even to visits. It isn't false, but it is limited. It is not your whole soul. Only a fragment, usually the most socially acceptable part. The problem begins when you are forced to wear this mask in your own home, the one place where you should be free to rest in your true self. For people with a particularly strong persona, often introverted, sensitive, or deeply observant, a simple visit can feel extremely draining. Suddenly you have to perform again. Choose your words carefully, manage your expressions, keep track of the conversation, worry about the dishes in the sink or the light being too bright or too dim. All of this consumes enormous amounts of psychic energy, Jung explained. The persona is necessary. It helps us function in society. But when we mistake the persona for our true self, the soul begins to cry out. Perhaps that is why you feel such inner resistance to visits. It isn't about disliking people, it's about being forced to uphold a socially acceptable image, even when all you really want is peace. Sometimes all you want is to sit barefoot in silence, staring out the window. The truth is, many people spend years trapped in their persona. Even at home, they smile politely, welcome guests, and put effort into being pleasant, while internally they are exhausted, irritated, and drained. Depth psychology offers a liberating truth. You have the right to be yourself in your own space. You are allowed to say no to visits. You are allowed to decline invitations. You are allowed to be unavailable. Because when you sacrifice your peace to please others, you abandon yourself. There are moments when you simply long to be alone. Not out of sadness or drama, but because your soul is calling for silence. And yet, many people feel strange or even guilty about this. After all, we live in a culture that celebrates constant socializing, being loud, active, and always present. Jung saw it differently. For him, the impulse to withdraw was not weakness, but the beginning of one of life's most important journeys, the path of individuation. Individuation means becoming who you were born to be, not what society expects, not what your parents projected, not the mask you've worn for years, but your true self, with both light and shadow, conscious and unconscious, essence and truth. This process doesn't happen in noise, it happens in silence, in retreat, in moments of pause. That's why your discomfort with visitors isn't laziness or emotional instability. It is your soul protecting you, pulling you away from distractions so you can hear what is whispered deep inside. Something in you wants to surface. For that, you need time alone. Jung said it clearly. Loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to express what truly matters to you. And what could be more important than listening to yourself? But how can that happen in the middle of endless chatter with a guest who won't leave, in conversations that never touch the soul? The truth is, some phases of life demand conscious isolation. Not as an escape, but as immersion. You don't withdraw to disappear. You withdraw to return stronger, clearer, and more fully yourself. While the outside world demands your attention with obligations, parties, and constant activity, your inner world asks you to wait. Stay a little longer in silence. Don't open the door yet. Take care of yourself first. When you recognize this truth, you may feel an almost physical sense of relief. That deep calm when someone finally puts words to something you've always felt but never explained. The unease you once believed was a personal flaw is in fact a sign of something deeper. If Jung were sitting beside you with his calm, piercing gaze, he might say, "You are not wrong for wanting to be alone. You are simply listening to the voice of your soul, and that is rare." Jungian psychology gives us 6 deep insights about people who prefer solitude, especially in their own homes. First, you are more sensitive to the energy of spaces than you realize. The unconscious perceives what the conscious mind overlooks. You are attuned to the psychic field of others, their voices, silences, unspoken tensions. When someone enters your home, they bring more than their body. They bring energy, unresolved emotions, and personal stories. You sense all of it as heaviness, and it leaves you exhausted. Second, your psyche needs space. Jung saw introversion as a natural necessity for restoring balance. Silence and solitude help realign the soul. A single visit, however, can disrupt that fragile balance. What others dismiss as laziness is often your inner system gasping for air. Third, constant social interaction can alienate you from yourself. Jung taught that the true self only emerges in stillness. Polite conversation and small talk may appear harmless, but they push you away from your deepest essence. It's not that you dislike people, it's that being with others often requires setting yourself aside. Fourth, the presence of another person can stir your shadow. The shadow holds repressed memories, unwanted traits, and unhealed wounds. Sometimes all it takes is a casual remark from a visitor, and suddenly you feel restless or irritated. The reaction isn't always about them. It's about what they unknowingly awaken in you. Fifth, this withdrawal you feel may be the beginning of something sacred, your individuation. Transformation begins the moment you stop trying to please everyone else and start honoring your inner truth. You discover that time, silence, and solitude aren't escapes. They're necessary steps to live more deeply and honestly. And sixth, you are embodying the hermit archetype. Imagine an old man with a long white beard, holding a lantern and walking alone on a quiet path in the dark. This is the hermit, a timeless image of wisdom and inner clarity. Jung described the hermit as a universal archetype, an energy present in each of us. When you choose solitude over performance, you are listening to this inner guide. The hermit teaches us to say no without guilt, to close the door without shame, to honor boundaries without apology. Because every time you smile when you don't mean it, every time you give kindness without the energy to back it, you abandon yourself to live in someone else's world. And eventually you realize you cannot live like that anymore. It is time to honor your soul. Solitude is not emptiness, it is fullness. It is the space where you realign with yourself, where you breathe again, where you hear your own voice. So the next time you feel uneasy about having visitors, remember this. It is not about rejecting people. It is about protecting your energy and listening to your soul. Jung's wisdom shows us that this longing for solitude is not a flaw. It is a sign of depth. It is the voice of the soul calling you home. The hermit symbolizes a deep inner call for withdrawal, wisdom, and self-knowledge. It is that subtle but powerful impulse that makes you want to close the door, turn off your phone, and step away from the noise of the world. Not as an escape, but as a way to listen to what is happening inside of you. In Jungian psychology, the hermit lives in silence because only in stillness does the brightest light appear. This archetype does not represent empty loneliness or unhealthy isolation. It represents the courage to turn inward, to face your doubts, fears, and shadows, and through them to discover your inner light. No one else can give you this light. It is something you must uncover for yourself. And for that, you need a sacred space. Often, that sacred space is simply your own home. If you've ever felt an almost irresistible desire not to host guests or to remain in quiet instead of entertaining, it may be the hermit within you calling. That inner voice is asking you to slow down, to stop losing yourself in the endless distractions of the outer world, and to reconnect with your core being. Carl Jung believed that honoring this inner call is essential for mental and emotional health. And when you think about it, following the path of the hermit is also an act of resistance. Resistance against the frantic pace of the world, against shallow connections, against the constant pressure to be available, social, and presentable. Choosing solitude is an act of soul care, of self-love, of deep respect for your inner life. So the next time someone asks you why you prefer to be alone or why you don't like having visitors, remember the hermit within you. He stands with his lantern in hand, showing you that true light is born only after you have entered your own darkness. And it is more than okay, it is necessary to need silence in order to find yourself again. For Jung, the hermit was not a sad figure, not a social failure or someone incapable of connection. Instead, he is a guardian of inner wisdom. When you answer the hermit's call, your solitude begins to transform. It becomes a sacred journey of growth, self-discovery, and healing. In this space, you start to hear answers that were drowned out by the constant noise of the outer world. You allow yourself to feel deeply, to reflect without rushing, to think without interruption. And slowly your soul begins to heal. You begin to notice old patterns, you integrate the parts of yourself you had suppressed, and you uncover hidden strengths that were always within you. From this process, you develop a quiet kind of confidence, a strength that does not depend on approval or validation from others. Of course, this path is not easy. The world outside constantly celebrates activity, performance, and being socially available. But the hermit reminds us of a crucial truth. In order to be fully present for the world, you must first be fully present for yourself. That is the wisdom of solitude. So when you decline a visit or choose to stay home, it doesn't mean you are shutting yourself off. It means you are preparing inwardly, creating space so that when you do engage with others, you can show up with greater authenticity and connection. The hermit archetype invites you into this deep transformation, one that allows you to return to the world clearer, stronger, and more yourself. Once you begin to recognize the hermit within, an important question naturally arises. How do you balance the desire for solitude with the human need for connection? Jung taught that a healthy life does not mean denying the social side of our nature, nor does it mean isolating ourselves completely. Instead, it is about creating a conscious dialogue between both aspects of being. The hermit calls for silence, retreat, and introspection. The outer world calls for engagement, activity, and participation. The art lies in finding a rhythm that respects your boundaries without cutting you off entirely. This balance begins with small, intentional choices. You can create simple rituals that protect your quiet time, reading in the morning before the world wakes up, taking a solitary walk in the evening, or setting aside a space in your home where you can sit in peace. At the same time, you can choose your social connections more intentionally, spending time only with those who respect your space and truly nourish your spirit. This balance is not always easy at first, but it is deeply liberating once you embrace it. Most importantly, you do not owe anyone an explanation. Your boundaries are valid, your need for silence is valid, and your way of being in the world deserves respect, especially from yourself. Society often fails to understand the value of solitude. In a culture that glorifies busyness, networking, and constant availability, choosing silence can be misinterpreted as selfishness or weakness. But Jung saw it differently. Individuation, the process of becoming your true self, requires you to honor your inner needs, even when the world demands otherwise. Respecting your boundaries is not selfishness. It is an act of deep self-love and self-respect. The first step is learning to listen to your inner signals. Is your body tired? Is your mind scattered? Do you feel irritated or restless in social situations? These are signs that your system needs space and silence. Instead of ignoring them, give yourself permission to slow down. Second, communicate your needs clearly but simply. You don't need to justify or defend yourself. A simple, "I need some time for myself today," is enough. People who truly care about you will understand, and those who don't may not belong in your inner circle anyway. Third, create a sacred space for yourself. This doesn't need to be elaborate. It could be a favorite corner in your home, a park bench, or a daily ritual that centers you. The important part is that it becomes a space where your inner hermit feels safe, where you can reconnect with your essence. Finally, be gentle with yourself. Don't expect to always be social, productive, or available. You are allowed to simply be. Honoring your longing for solitude is honoring your soul. Perhaps now, after reflecting on this journey, you feel that something has been touched within you. Something deep, familiar, and true. And that is the beauty of Jung's work. the reminder that every soul is unique. There is no single right or wrong way to be in the world. There is only your way. If your way involves preferring silence over noise, solitude over constant company, or retreat over endless activity that does not make you strange, cold, or unlovable, Jung reminds us that individuation, becoming whole, means embracing all parts of yourself, even those the world does not always understand. When you respect your longing for solitude, you are not withdrawing from life, you are preparing to live it more authentically. Your home, your silence, your inner hermit, these are sacred spaces where your soul renews itself and grows. And in that renewal, you find the strength to meet the world on your own terms with clarity, authenticity, and inner peace. If there is one insight to carry with you, let it be this: your love of silence is not a flaw. It is a profound expression of your soul's wisdom. It is your path to healing, growth, and self-discovery. And it deserves your respect above all else. So, honor the hermit within you. Trust the wisdom of solitude. And know that in the stillness of your own space, you are already becoming who you were always meant to be,